Everyone, welcome to the first Salvo This Is Who We Are show. Today I'm joined by Dave Llewellyn, Mary Claire, and Ivan Bishop. Dave, do you want to introduce yourself?
I suppose most of you will know who I am, and you either love me or you hate me. Most of you hate me, but I've got broad shoulders and I walk like a duck.
Mary Claire?
Hi there, my name is Mary Claire and I'm a member of Salvo.
Ivan?
So I'm Ivan Bishop. I'm a member of Salvo and Liberation, and actually do all the dirty deeds keeping the Liberation side running. So pleased to meet you all.
Hi, Ivan.
I'm Indy James. You probably all know my annoying Aberdonian accent from TikTok. But Dave, who is Salvo?
Well, I didn't know who Salvo were until about like 14 months ago, when I was told that there was a little offshoot group of the SSRG. We're talking about doing some stuff, and I think they had 5 members. And she had contacted me because I'd been involved with doing events because she wanted to hold a launch event. And so she contacted me about that. And that's basically how I got involved. And by the time the launch event happened, it'd gone from 5 members to 200, which was, that was just over a year ago now. It was a year, a couple of weeks ago, which why we had an AGM on Sunday. But basically, we are a group of people from all parties and none, all claiming like sovereignty for Scotland. Personal sovereignty, and getting together to make things happen because Westminster is not sovereign in Scotland.
No, the people are.
Yes.
Ivan, who's Liberation.Scot?
Okay, so Salvo nominally is the educational and campaign running part of a larger program for the Scottish National Congress. And Liberation really is the movement to move this forward, to go to the United Nations to show that the Treaty of 1707 has not been upheld as written, and to show that Scottish sovereignty is alive and kicking. And the Liberation movement intends to go to the UN and, first of all, through the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, and actually say to them, hey, you know, the British state has not kept its word. It has been exploiting Scottish resources. It has effectively annexed Scotland and buried our laws and our sovereignty as enshrined in the Claim of Right in 1689 since 1707, and is happily treating us like a colony. They have a 10-to-1 majority over us, and we're going to say to the ICJ, you know, and they've broken the rules, they're taking our resources, and we want this to stop. And these rulings tend to be really advisory from the ICJ, unless it's something UN says, hey, it's breaking international law. And in this case, it is. We have a treaty signed by England in 1707. They have basically done whatever they pleased after that treaty was signed. They broke all the rules. They've taken our resources, undermined people in our courts and even in our church. And we're going to have that stopped. So we get an advisory ruling from the ICJ. And because it's breaking international laws recognized through the UN, these things become binding on the British state, which really means England and its parliament. And we're going to wait and see what happens. So this is a peaceful movement, and it's using the law as written and treaties as written. That's the goal and the short version.
It's very interesting. How did you get involved with Salvo, Mary Claire? What does it mean to you?
Well, the word salvo, for a start, conjures up everything in my head. It's salvation, it's salve, it's a healing, which is not what the words as a noun salvo means, but that's what it conjures up in my head. And then I read what Salvo were doing, and that was it was a shock to me at first, and then I read more, and absolutely. But I mean, it's one of these things that you actually feel in your DNA. It's, you know, that in your gut, it's wrong. What's been happening to Scotland is wrong. Even as a drama student, when I was at drama college, I was told by my voice coach that I had to do receive pronunciation. And I said, well, sorry, that's just, that's BBC English. No, Mary Claire, it's a blank canvas. I said, no, that's just rubbish. Everybody has an accent. I've got a Scottish accent, and I'm quite proud of it. Thank you very much. So from a very early age, I was a campaigner for independence with a long time ago. So, and it's just I've just watched the way it's changed so much, and it can be a peaceful aspect of it, and this because it's law, and it's been buried. And I want to know, in 1707, when the voluntary treaty was signed, it was a political and economic union and not a territorial union.
Correct.
So why are we just letting them come and take all our resources? And we've just been ridden roughshod forever. And it's now it's gaslighting on acid, and it has been a dripping roast for 300 odd years.
Yeah.
And this has been uncovered, and that's really important. And why was it hidden? We know why it was hidden,
All
but
right.
it's now been resurrected, so there's no stopping Salvo, as far as I'm
No.
concerned.
I'm really the same as you. I started campaigning for independence on TikTok. I wasn't living in Scotland. I was living in England. And I was like, oh, what can I do like to help? So I just started campaigning online. And about 6 months after that, a really good man, Keith Brown, came on our TikTok lives and started speaking about Salvo, telling us how important it was. And for a wee while, we sort of didn't listen. We were like, no, the Scottish government will get us independence and stuff. This doesn't matter. But then one night, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was still awake. I was bored. I was like, do you want to know something? I'm going to go online and see what he's talking about. And I went on to the Salvo website, and the essay I actually started reading was The Treaty Bites Back. And see, by the time I got to the end of it, I didn't realize my jaw had been dropped the whole time I was reading it. And ever since then, never went back. Just been Salvo, Salvo, Salvo.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a key thing that everyone needs to be aware of, that the Treaty of 1707 is not some dusty, being blunt, crappy old document hiding around in a vault somewhere. It's a live, kicking piece of international treaty that England and Scotland, the two countries, agreed to, and these two countries still exist. They didn't disappear into a single state. Normally, it was a union of two nations. The two nation states still exist, with the UK government supposedly ruling both the states. But of course, we know, and we've suffered because of the fact that England has always had 10 times the number of MPs we had. And it makes you wonder what our ancestors thought, thinking, hey, this could be fair on a 10-1 majority against us. I mean, who would vote in a situation like that? So the treaty is alive, and it's kicking, and it's real, and it's bound by international law. And all we're going to do and push for is that the English, and that's the British state, however you want to phrase this exactly, stands by the words in the treaty. You implement it as written. You will not go back and randomly write nonsense that lets you extract goods or send your king to our country and expect to be treated like it's your country, because it is not. You're from a separate state. You're a foreigner in our country. That's the way things really are. And it's not being abusive. It's just a fact of law. And we're going to expose that at the ICJ, International Court of Justice, and at the UN. And the interesting thing is, everyone needs to know who's going to watch this, is that the political parties in Scotland, all of them, and that includes ALPA, unfortunately, are bound by devolved rules that came in 1998 with the devolved parliament in Holyrood. They are bound to do what London says they can and cannot do, caused by so-called reserve powers. That's great for politicians, but here's the bottom line that the British state understands. We, the people who are sovereign, can do exactly what we like, when we like. We can talk to whom we want. We can cross every political boundary. We can go to the ICJ, the UN, to companies. We can talk anywhere we like, and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. And they hate it, and they're scared of it, because they may have a way to wield power over politicians, but over us, there's nothing they can do. That's what they hate. And the fact we can do this on the internet and transmit these facts to people is something that makes them extremely nervous.
All right. Really good point that you raised was, how did our MPs think that was fair back then to be outnumbered? A really important thing to remember is there was an English army on the border. There was an English army in Ulster,
Yes.
ready to invade from both sides if those MPs didn't sign that treaty. And then obviously we can't forget that they were bribed, bought and sold for English gold.
And there was a fleet on the force.
Yeah.
So it was military occupation.
Mhm.
Yeah, again, people may not have seen, but the second this was signed, and people already know this, they literally covered the whole of Scotland in English military forts. Now, I know it's a TV show, but it is true that before the last independence referendum, the Outlander, which was a TV show, I understand, but it has sentiment that was very pro-Scottish and anti-British state, was pulled and delayed from launch because the Prime Minister then, who apparently likes farm animals, said you can't show this because it's going to cause dissent. It makes people feel anti-English. And this is not really anti-English. I hate the British state, to be quite blunt about it. It's not really anti-English. I lived in London for a long time. I did my PhD in Canterbury, I lived in Reading, I taught in Oxford. The English per se are not bad, but the British state, the world will tell you and understands that it has done so many evil things, and it's continuing to do it to us. So yeah, there was a naval force, they covered a country in forts. It was effectively an annexation. So they signed a treaty, which they then ignored immediately and enforced their will through a 10-to-1 majority and by force of arms. End of discussion. We were annexed. That's what happened. There was no union. There is.
And I think the big problem with Scotland is because, as Alistair Gray said, we're actually physically attached by landmass.
Yes. I'd like to build a big canal.
I know, or I'll get a big digger and just dig and just let us float towards Iceland or something, or just be separated physically. Which is because if people, I've heard the talk about the English having India and all the countries that they colonised. They're different because they're in different geography. It's different in Scotland, because we're physically attached makes it all the more sinister because we're physically attached. So that's the one big issue I think I've got with it.
The Welsh had the Welsh had their ring of castles built in their country to subjugate them. We had places like Fort William, Fort Angus. I'm sure you all know other ones. It was exactly the same process. Obviously, just that times like forts and stuff. Obviously, like I say, the Welsh had their castles built to subjugate them. We had forts.
Yeah. Actually, one more thing, and then sorry.
No, it's okay.
So one more thing that's a very strong comparison, and I did publish a blog about this, is that there was a book published called basically the British Mandate in, I think it was subtropical Africa in the early 1920s, and pretty clearly they lay out how they control their countries. They have an emir who has limited power. The power vested in this emir comes through his stooges, which is like Holyrood and our first minister, doesn't matter who that minister is, and they're given enough power to enable them to make money and do things on a colonial standing for the British state. And there's zero difference with what Holyrood actually is. I understand that we went round and got signatures. I understand the huge effort put in by people like Alex Salmon. I mean, all respect to him for that. But the reserve power list is in exactly the same wording in this book in the 1920s of what they did to every British colony. They control them by reserving powers to London, which is the British state, and keeping them away from the indigenous peoples. And they're doing exactly the same to us. And Holyrood basically is a colonial administration. There's no disrespect to anyone who worked hard to get it, but I've said since the 90s when I started blogging, it's a colonial outpost. It's an administration. It is really not a parliament because it has no powers. It has nothing that we recognize the power for a nation state. It's controlled by London, always has been. And guys, for the SNP, it always will be for as long as you do this. There's no escaping it.
Right. Well, the laws that you mentioned that were put into the Treaties of Union, Ivan, are they still law, even though Westminster acts as though they're not?
Yeah, they are, absolutely. Now, we have legal experts and researchers who will confirm this. I mean, everybody knows who CSIRS actually is. But yeah, the laws, and again, to be very clear, it doesn't matter the Treaty of Union was signed in 1707. No, you'll hear immediately, it's before the Vienna Convention, blah, blah, blah. Irrelevant. It's a treaty at law. It's recognized, and we're going to push that at the ICJ and the UN. There's no getting away from the fact that it's there. What's interesting is that when the treaty was written, in part the treaty was, I think, of the claim of right. Everyone's now heard about it. People have talked about it, waved hands about it. But the claim of right was there. A couple of lines protect the Scottish Church. The Scottish Church turned out they're not really helpful in decolonising us. But the rest of it is around our rights, our Bill of Rights, our right to protest, our right to salvo. It's a very long document, and if you read it, of the outtakes we have of it, it looks very like the American Bill of Rights, because it was written by the same drunk Scots people who came to the American colonies. Looks very similar. So the claim of right is alive and kicking. Charles, in his coronation in England, said, yeah, as mandated by law, I will uphold the claim of right and the independence of the Scottish Church. He doesn't mention the rest of it. Every single part of the claim of right is law. It's buried into the treaty. The people that can change that treaty or the claim of right are the sovereign Scots. It cannot be changed by the English Parliament. It cannot be changed by England's king. It cannot be changed by Holyrood. It cannot be changed by any constitution rewrite that's not mandated by the sovereign Scots. And that could happen, say, through a referendum, but we're not going to vote to stay in this pit, are we? So no, it's law. It has not expired.
So we take it to the international courts, they override anything that's in the British courts. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's already happened. I mean, there have been public opinions, Crocodile's opinion recently. I mean, there are places, I'm just mentioning names, and Dunlop tried a couple of times with Sayre say it's not true, and it was basically cut down. The fact is it's law, it's standing, and it doesn't matter if it predates the Vienna Convention. England knows this, and England wants it to stay because England is busy exploiting our resources. And I mean, we can talk about oil and gas for now. It'll be water later, and they want to use our renewables to make hydrogen to sell that as well. They'll take everything they can, and eventually it will be the water. And the fact is, it all belongs to Scottish people. We can get down the line just really quickly and talk about the ownership. The land is held for the common good, for the people. And we can talk maybe later about free ports, but people who take that land or buy it or lease from the Scottish government, you will be in possession of stolen goods. The Scottish government cannot give it to you because it does not belong to the Scottish government. It belongs to the people. So anything you put up there, yeah, we're going to take it off you with no compensation. That's what's going to happen to you. You can bleat all you like to the international courts, but they'll already recognise it's held in the common good for the Scottish people. You built on it, you bought it, don't buy stolen goods. That's simple.
Yeah,
this is coming as well.
Yeah, I've been asking the community council, I've been asking all the councillors in Glasgow City Council, I would like for this past 12 years since I came back to Scotland, for a list of our common good assets. Never have I got them. I've been asking them every 2 months. I ask them and they've not put it. But I do know that they sold most of our common good assets off, and they're now on the New York Stock Exchange as assets.
Yep, that's it.
So this is just
yeah, well, they sold them off, and it is theft. But the Freeport thing is a great thing, moving in our direction. Even like the grouse moors, the fact is this land does not belong to these individuals. It's not for lease, and it extends out into the oil fields and the drilling, giving out permits. Since I used to work for Chevron, I'll just say, yeah, I did. Giving out exploration rights, supposedly. You can't hand out rights to something you don't belong. It's the same deal. And again, it's all tied back into how you run a colonial outpost in Edinburgh through your so-called Devolved Parliament to make sure that the money keeps flowing in the gravy train, keeps flowing south. And that's what's been happening. And again, it's in breach of the treaty. You pointed out, it never was a territorial union. It was political and economic. England can say we're going to levy taxes on Scottish goods like oil and gas produced. Actually, they can. What they can't do is take it without compensation. And that means you pay the price per barrel, per litre, however you're in charge the gas, you have to do it.
So anything that they lift off our territories is theft?
Absolutely every single thing they've taken. The interesting point will be England, when we're done with them, I don't think we're going to get much in the way of compensation back for them, but we're certainly going to position that the resources will belong to us. And there's nothing stopping us turn around and saying, we're going to force the union as it was. Maybe we'll pay taxes, but that's the end of it. If you want a new treaty with Scotland, you can have it, and the sovereign people may sign it with you. But if you don't, then sling your hook. You're going to be there with no more revenue and subsidies from Scotland, because it has been subsidising England for many years, and it's nothing to do with the English. It's a subsidised British state and how it spends its money. I mean, just look at things like Trident. Yeah,
who in their right mind would sign a new treaty with England?
Well, this is the point. You talk to Sarah about this later. So the thing is that we have we mentioned the word really independence once in this conversation? No, we haven't. What we've talked about here is enforcing the treaty as it was signed, and the main thing there is we take control of our ocean and sea shelf, all our land and all the resources therein, because they belong to the sovereign Scots. They're ours. compensation you actually owe us under international law. What will happen that I really, really don't know. But what's very clear is the gravy train south is going to stop. It's that simple. Now, what's England going to do? You know, I don't get into details, but at some point, you know, they either accept the ruling or they don't accept the ruling. It's that simple. What do we do in terms of breaking up the UK? I really don't know. Maybe we just stay for now, we get our resources back and we come to a new amicable agreement with London. But, you know, we are, and being blunt, we are the last colony. And forget the Chagos Islands. Scotland is the last British colony. We're it. And we're rich, and as you said, we're attached.
Chagos has now been handed over to Mauritius anyway, another coloniser, to get the UK off the hook.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, try to do that with Scotland. Watch what happens. It's not going to happen. You know, it's not the same. So I'm hoping that we get the resources back. That seems very likely. And at that point, England is going to come and run the treaty as is, but it leaves them financially in a very sticky place. So what happens? You know, I would see nothing wrong with perhaps, and this is my personal opinion. I'm not speaking here for Salvo Liberation. My opinion to come back and cut a deal, but you know what? It will enforce the treaty as written. You know, Lord knows what happens. If people are sovereign again, we do what we like in our own territory. And the key thing is part of the treaty again, and it was recognised. Thatcher talked about it, and it's in writing. Is that we, and it was confirmed again in the early 2000s. We have the right to choose our form of government as suits us at any time we like. We don't need a Section 33. We don't need any BS from some English Supreme Court. And it's England's Supreme Court. They're not sovereign in Scotland. They don't command over the Court of Session. They just do not. And we things to do again is Stockholm Syndrome, colonial sufferer. The fact is we can do what we like when we like. It's that simple. And that's the way it's going to go.
My personal hope is that we expose that the treaty has been violated to an international audience. We expose it to, obviously, the whole of Scotland. And then I hope it just wakes enough Scots up to say, wow, we really need to get as far away as possible.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. I mean,
I don't think there's anyone has ever gone into any kind of treaty with England and come out like best.
Albion. You can't trust them as far as you can fling them. Yeah, you can't. You absolutely cannot trust them as far as you can fling them. That's absolutely true. But for now, we're on the same landmass, and if we get control of our resources back, there'll be a reckoning of some sort. And I don't know what they would want to do. They would need our help to stay afloat as a country. Another thing to remember is, you know, the British state is thoroughly evil, and yeah, I hate them. Lots of people in England have suffered really badly under their own government in London, with their own MPs in London, the 560 MPs, how many they have, and I'm pretty sure they'd be wanting help as much as good to get their country straightened out. I mean, England's got its own problems. This happens.
Maybe we could take on Liverpool as an enclave.
Yeah, moved into Manchester.
Put the border back where it used to be, or say, hey, if you English countries want to come back to Scotland where it used to be, you're welcome to join. I mean, and again, it's absolute speculation. It's like airy-fairy for now. But the key thing is to expose the fact that treaty's been abused, its terms have been broken, and we want our resources back under our control. Right now, it's all we're asking for. It leaves the English in a very bad position. And again, remember, and this is just as a slight aside, if you look at that's a slight aside, but it's interesting for data interception laws and how the British state operates against anyone who may have, and it basically says, like, impact the economy of the UK at large. They can do data interception with warrants and all kinds of funky stuff because they do not want the gravy train to stop. I mean, they'll have no money for Trident, no money for their military interventions along with NATO. Just the gravy train stops, and they don't want that. So it puts them in a very bad position.
I think I think most people focus on it from an economic perspective, whereas I focus on it from an economic perspective as well, but also majorly cultural. This country has been turned into, like, the world views us as tartan kilts and shortbread and like alcoholics, and that's all there is to us. But Scotland, before the Union, we were sovereign. We were a nation of warriors, and our culture has been stripped from us. There's a quote from a politician in the 1700s from obviously Westminster. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. People can fact check this, but he said, the rebellious spirit of Scotland will always stay unless they speak English, stop wearing their kilts, and we disarm them. And look at Scotland today. We speak English. Scots has been turned into slang. Gaelic's almost eradicated. And yeah, we're allowed to wear kilts now, but for about 20 or was it 20, 30 years, people were only allowed to wear kilts if they conformed and joined the British Army.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean, really, it has been, and again, it's fact. It has been a cultural, economic, and humanitarian, and I'm going to use the word genocide against us, and it has gone on for centuries, starting with Cromwell's fun and games. And I'll say that like with a sense of sarcasm. Back in the late 1600s, our people were shipped off to the West Indies to cut sugarcane for the English. And from what I hear, again, people can fact check. The number I've heard is up to 100,000 Scots were dumped in the West Indies on slave ships to provide sugar, basically, for rich people in the southeast of England. They took away our language, our culture, our books. They destroyed our schooling system. I mean, the Scots school system was so far in advance of anything England had at the time. That was also destroyed. Everything they could do to subjugate the people, and that came along, of course, as we already said, with forts. Again, they signed the treaty and said, okay, we have a treaty now and we'll do whatever we like. And they did. That's what happened. We were almost eradicated. Our people starved on the coasts. And it's kind of sad. When I was at high school, I remember, at least in my school, we were taught about the clearances. We were taught people that starved to death on the coast. We were taught many things about this. Now I understand none of this happens. You know, it's like it never happened. They've rewritten history so much and they'll continue to do so by saying things, nonsense things like, oh, Treaty of Union, who cares, it's old, doesn't matter. Well, actually, guys, it does. Every young person who may watch this, it matters. You know, if you go out and, you know, and your parents set a curfew at 11 p.m. for you every single night during the week or the weekends, you better be coming back. The rule doesn't expire. It's a permanent rule from your parents. The treaty is permanent. It's written down. It was signed. It was agreed by William and Mary, and it was agreed through the Scottish Commissioners. It happened. It has not gone away. It's important to realise it's alive and kicking. And we're going to make sure that comes back and carries on. So,
wow, you've actually. Sorry, Dave.
When you're talking about the treaty, the thing that I find interesting about it is that the actual sovereign Scots were rioting on the streets, trying to call Salvo, while the Scottish parliamentarians who actually voted it through, and there were a lot who voted against it, were cowering in a basement somewhere
in Edinburgh,
afraid because they were getting paid. And the thing is, as far as that's concerned, they did not have the right to sign it, because at the end of the day, the Scottish people being sovereign, basically, right, they never gave their sovereignty to the Parliament. They never gave the sovereignty to the estates. The estates wielded the people's sovereignty, but it always belonged to the people, and that's why the estates had the power to sack a king. And the thing is, as far as that's concerned, if you take all that into consideration, you think, okay, so this treaty was signed that put us into the Union, but who actually was authorised to sign it in the first place? Who had the authority to sign that thing? Because it wasn't the Scottish MPs, because the Parliament wasn't sovereign. It wasn't the Queen, Queen Anne, because she wasn't sovereign, as we'll come on to later on in this programme. When we'll actually show you the oath that Queen Anne signed that says that she couldn't do it. And she basically, in her own oath, it said that she didn't have the right to do it. The parliamentarians didn't have the right to do it. So who actually had the right to sign this treaty? In other words, at the end of the day, it's like someone coming in saying, "Oh, is it okay if I borrow your car for the rest of the day?" And they go and sell it on eBay.
Yeah, you see, Dave, what the scam they pulled, the same scam they pulled today. And I said there was a negotiation between Scottish and English commissioners, but the commissioners were sovereign Scots, but they had no transfer of sovereignty as commissioners to sign in the Scottish people's name. You're right. They can negotiate around the treaty and talk about it. And I know if they'd come out to Edinburgh and stuck it on the church doors and gone around the country and said, what do you think about this? Do you agree to it? Yes or no? Maybe we'd be in a different kind of treaty, but they didn't. They signed it in our name with no transfer of sovereignty. You're correct. And a whole bunch of them were hiding in basements. They took gold, and all kinds of stuff we were sold out. But, I don't get into the Robert Burns view of the world. Those commissioners were the ones really did the negotiations with England. But again, they were not and could not have any sovereign right to do so, simply because there's no way to transfer sovereignty to them either. I mean, an interesting fact for young people today, and you to keep this clearly in your heads. Today, you go and you vote through the Electoral Commission that's controlled basically by the British state. You vote for an MP controlled by the British state, and the fact is they control what happens. You do not transfer your sovereignty to that MP when you vote for them. They're there to talk supposedly on your behalf and hold surveys and represent your views. But the fact is, they do not have your sovereignty when you vote for them. It's not ceded. You give some control over, and you could have a by-election, but the messed up situation where we can't even say to them, you behave badly, you broke Scottish law, you're out, because the Electoral Commission and the English system doesn't permit that. Our system does. You behave badly, you're out the next day. We don't have to wait for a by-election to dump you. We don't have to wait for you to resign or to die or to be caught in a brothel or betting on the dogs. You're gone. So the English system requires by-elections and waiting periods and all this nonsense. Scottish law says you're out. There was nothing that these commissioners signed legally as binding. It's a very interesting question. I won't talk it because I don't know anything deeper about this. Sarah probably does. But the key thing for young people to remember is you do not give your sovereignty up when you vote for an MP. End of discussion. It doesn't happen.
That's
It's
not
a
what
key thing to remember.
it's not what Angus Robertson said in Parliament the other day, was it?
He knows nothing about history. He knows nothing about his own law. He could go to Salvo, read the documents himself. It's crystal clear. There's no transfer of sovereignty. Under the English system, there may be. Under ours, there certainly is not. Trying to swear, I have no respect for the man at all. Absolutely
My
zero.
bail conditions prevent me from talking about him at all.
Okay, well, as I said, I mean, I'm trying my best to keep a civil tongue,
Yeah.
but the bottom line is sovereignty is never transferred. That's the key thing for every young voter, every voter to remember. The sovereignty stays with you.
I think that's
What's
the
wrong is
that's
it
the whole
has this
thing we have to
delay.
get across. That's the whole thing we have to get across to young people as well. Because
it's important. I don't know if we want to talk about other countries doing things at some point, James, but yeah, there are some interesting
Yeah, well,
parallels.
you led nicely into the next question, which I'll ask all of you. So say I was a 16, 17-year-old, can I join Salvo and Liberation, and why would I care? Marie Claire, you can answer first if you want.
why would you care? Because this is the rest of your life. As I said, you've got your life ahead of you. So it's really important that you join Salvo and actually learn your history so you can take it into your future. Really simple.
Yeah, perfect answer.
And educate yourself on this.
Ivan or Dave, do you want to use one to go next?
Dave, you may go next. I'll keep mine short.
Basically, the way I see it is most of us have been taught shit in school since we were kids. Certainly people at our age. But we were taught all about Magna Carta. We may have been taught about the Bill of Rights, which incidentally has just as much sectarian language in it as the Claim of Right does, because it was written by the same person, Gilbert of Salisbury. But not only that, but the UK Parliament are claiming parliamentary sovereignty from their one. And I would like to say right here and now, as far as that's concerned, when we're talking about we are Salvo, that we do not agree with the sectarian stuff at all that's in the Claim of Right, which is diabolical. But then you have to remember that the Claim of Right is partly statutory law, which can be changed, and it's partly constitutional law, which basically sets out the relationship between the people and the state. And it's say that's the stuff that cannot be changed, and that's the stuff that we're dealing with. Unfortunately, it always seems to get tied up with Protestants and Catholics, which, as far as I'm concerned, is anathema.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll just say that's a divide and conquer attitude and approach the English have promoted, and Charles promoted it in his little blah blah in London. He only mentioned the first couple of lines about keeping the Scottish Church separate from the English Church because he wants to stoke any kind of separatism. I won't even get into it. I don't care. And James, any young people watching this, most of them do not give a monkey's what colour you are, what religion you are. They really don't care. They want to know what kind of music you like, and that's probably it. They don't care. They're not interested. And it's not saying there's anything wrong with being religious or having faith. That's good. But Charles stoked the fire right then by just saying, you know, uphold blah, blah, blah for the church. It's a diversionary tactic, divide and conquer, create trouble between Protestants and Catholics. You know what? Most people just don't care. Those that really do care are dangerous because they've missed the point of just being a regular human being and get on with your life. So anyway, so Salvo for young people, keep it really, really short, is really, really simply the future that's being offered to you on the plate today. And if you've seen any of the news, listen to your parents or watched other things that's been offered to you from Hollywood. Remember, that's coming from a colonial administration. They are controlled and do what they're told by London because of the so-called reserve power list. Go and look up reserve powers. All the things that other countries do, Scotland does not get to do. So for as long as you just vote for your MPs and expect things to change, they're not going to. You'll continue to see your health service be attacked. You'll continue to see your salaries go down. You'll see your rights to travel and education be destroyed slowly but surely. You'll see your country built over by big companies building so-called free ports. You're going to be used and abused unless you use the sovereignty you have and take back control of your country. No suggestion you get out there with pitchforks and torches like Shrek. What we're saying, and this isn't all people talking to you, is that Salvo's real, the treaty is real, and you can have a far better life as a sovereign Scottish citizen than you'll ever have as a voter under the Electoral Commission and the English system that we've been stuck with for 300 years. It's that simple. You'll be better off financially, educationally, spiritually, and emotionally if you take control of your own country back. Independence is normal. It absolutely is. Why is Scotland, our country, controlled by reserve powers from a foreign country? England is a foreign country. It's not your country. This is not anti-English, it's anti-British state. That's simple. So join Salvo and basically take control back. You want control for your parents, your curfew. You want control back from Britain over your life. It's exactly the same thing. Although one might get you a scalping, one leaves you bankrupt for the rest of your life. Get out there and tell your friends. That's simple.
No, that was all really good. So why do you think the Scottish Constitution and claim of right isn't taught in schools?
Because what they teach you is the English Constitution, and it's not just schools. Basically, the teaching that they give to lawyers, they don't teach lawyers about the Scottish Constitution. But they've taught about the English one, because basically all power, all legal, all authority comes from Westminster, all thanks to that little 2 lines in their Bill of Rights that wasn't actually a bill, it was a declaration, because for the first year that William was in charge in England, he couldn't actually be crowned as king because James VII and II had thrown the Great Seal of England into the Thames so that he couldn't call a parliament. And if he couldn't call a parliament, he couldn't actually be brought in as king, because in England, according to Magna Carta, the king called the Lords, and then the Lords called the Commons under the Great Seal of England, and the Great Seal of England was floating down the Thames towards Dover, so it wasn't possible for them to do it, and they had to actually wait for almost a year. So the claim of right was actually signed into law almost 9 months before the English one was, and then the English decided that these 2 lines that they had in it to claim parliamentary sovereignty was all because the Chancellor at the time wanted to get William the powers without having to wait this year that we're going to do. So they were going to try and invite James to come back, to hand it over legally so that everything happened. But they didn't want him to have any power when he did. So that's basically why Parliament took the powers and they never gave them back. And that's basically why they don't want to teach about the claim of right, because the claim of right gives you far too much power. And at the end of the day, they don't want you to know the power that you have, because every single person in this country has the power of the king.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I mean, you know, again, if you look at the reality here, is that Magna Carta is English. We don't care. A lot of England's Bill of Rights, we don't care. A lot of the laws that they've passed, again, we simply don't care. The treaty again guarantees our right to protest, our right to assemble, which, for instance, they tried to stop outside Hollywood recently. These things are your rights to behave like a normal human being, be treated as such in your country, which is Scotland. It's not England and it's not the UK. UK is not a country, it's a state in Scotland. So basically making sure that you actually take control of these things that are yours is critical. Do not walk away. There's a rule book, okay? The rule book and the way England has to treat us is written into the treaty. The claim of right is part of that treaty. And, it's kind of like, it's like Timmy Turner and Fail Your Parents. Here's the rule book. You can't go ignoring that. England has ignored the rule book. So we need to take it back and make sure they follow the rules as you actually stated. In schools, they don't want to teach you. And it is true, Scottish universities, from what I understand, very rarely teach Scottish law. They very rarely do. It's part of the reason why we can't get Scottish legal firms and Scottish lawyers to stand up for sections of the claim of right, because they don't know what it is, they don't know how to use it, they don't know what it means. They firmly act inside the practices as has been handed down by the English state. And it's a process of assimilation, and it's a side effect of colonialization. These things matter. Someone else came to your country, told you what to do. Someone came to your classroom. The bully told you what to do, and you were scared and you did what the bully told you. That's what's happened to Scotland. So it happens to you at school. That's what happens to you in Scotland as well. And again, it needs to stop. We are protected by law inside the claim of right and inside the treaty, and we need to enforce them. And it affects every single man, woman, and child now and forever until this is put back and put into its correct form again. That's why they don't teach it in school. They don't want you to know. They want you to believe that London's supreme. They want you to believe in their court and their king. And guys, in Scotland, it's all nonsense. It seriously is. It's a nonsense. We have our law. It's protected by the treaty. What they've done is implemented their law over ours because we're a colony. The law has not gone away. Your rights have not gone away. They're simply hiding them from you. And Salvo is, if you think of a short version, is an educational part of this movement to raise awareness of what these things are and the fact they're real and applicable. And Liberation is going to make sure that the international community gives you these things back. Once you've got them, hold them tight and do not let any MP or anyone from the British state tell you they're not yours. And, even, I'm just going to say, Police Scotland has stopped protest apparently for tomorrow. This is what I'm reading, Dave, online. So we're going to have a bunch of flag-waving idiot unionists at Charlie Boy's visit to Edinburgh. But those who understand that he cannot be King of Scots without taking the oath of accession and touch the magic stones and have any kind of representation as the head of the UK, we're not allowed to go and protest. That's illegal under Scottish law. Right of protest is in the claim of right, and they're denying every teenager or everyone who doesn't want the monarchy that right. It's illegal what they're doing. End of discussion. That's why it matters. That's why they don't teach it in schools. It's been hidden. I'll stop talking again.
It's quite interesting you're talking about Scots law, because I know that I have a couple of friends that are in Catalan. They take a lot of the Scots law in Catalan law studies, and they actually have an awful lot of which would be our common good laws in the Catalan law system, which is more for the people than we are in our own country, which is actually quite interesting, just as an aside there, when you're talking about the law.
It's funny you should bring up the right to protest, because I've been talking to the police this morning about
again
there's some of us going up to tomorrow to basically not to protest against the king, because at the end of the day, what happens tomorrow, Charles can decide whether he wants to be king or not. The thing is, if he does want to be, he can swear the oath. So I've spoke to the police and they said, look, we're going to be coming along here tomorrow. This is what we're going to be doing, because we've read some of these things that they're going to be going heavy-handed and dragging people out. They say, we're going to be armed with the law. As I say, we've got it on papers with 1,000 leaflets printed up with it on it. And we're going to be telling people that Charles, if he wants to be King of Scotland, he can be King of Scotland. Swear the oath. If he doesn't swear the oath, that's a different thing altogether. But we'll talk about that later.
And what did the police say to you?
King of Scots. And again, remember, the right to protest is in the claim of right, and it's in the treaty. You can't come to our country and tell us you can't. And I'm just going to say, taking sides, Police Scotland stopping protest is against our law. I don't care what anyone says. This is unionist behaviour. And again, everyone, I am tallying people's strange behaviours. Police Scotland needs to understand the right to protest is there. No one's coming to cause trouble. The right to protest is there. You're going to allow unions to come and wave flags and like I swear how much we love Charles, and then you deny the rights of those under our law to come and peacefully protest, whether it's a banner or shouting or what hand leaflets, whatever. Guys in Police Scotland, you cannot be doing this. You really need to think very carefully where this is headed, because what Salvo Liberation is doing is unstoppable. Do not side with the unionists. Do not take their side. It would just be a mistake. You know, you have to side with your people. No one's asking you not to do your job. No one's not asking you not to keep the peace. Peaceful protest is there, and you need to let it happen. Even though European law, you got to let it happen just now. So let's hope it happens tomorrow. I'll be watching.
What did the police say to you, Dave?
Basically, they said that if they had any issues with what I'd said, they would get back to me. And I've not heard anything back. So as far as I know, we're sanctioned.
Good.
Okay. So is there any other countries that have popular sovereignty that we're discussing, and how close are they to Scotland?
I can start already. Yep, that's it. That's the number one choice, Dave, for now. Yeah, the Swiss have a system, a really short version, which they adopted in the late 90s, where control is devolved at different levels from the federal government down through what effectively would almost be like our shires in Scotland, like basically almost like the states, but in the physical terms, right down to municipalities, and it's broken down that way. People can have referendums on any big items, like say, if you don't want to leave the EU, well, 100,000 people can get signatures in like 50 days, and if we say we're not leaving, we're not leaving. That's the law in Switzerland. People can take local votes, and if enough people complain, they can take it all the way up to a national vote. Basically, power, control of taxes, control of local law, control of police forces is all devolved down locally, and it comes up to a federal level, but everyone can get together in these so-called cantons, which are kind of analogous vaguely to like shires, like, I don't know, 5 years or whatever in Scotland, and take votes. And it's a system of very, very direct government, and it is a form of popular sovereignty. It's something like the Scottish system used to be. It's not identical, but it's certainly something we can take. And again, to couch in modern terms, and everyone has to keep this in mind, everyone's like who's not 70 years old, if you're watching this, for the younger generation, the fact is this is a modern democracy, a very well-respected country for most of what it does, wealthy, stable, because its democracy is very, very healthy. A lot of their system is something like we used to run in Scotland that we can go back to quickly because it's in our law, it's in our claim of right. It's how we used to do things. We are planning between Salvo and Liberation to re-implement the system that we had and modernise it.
The
like some
boroughs.
things, for instance, yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Bring it back down to the boroughs, because as I'm in Glasgow, I'm a community councillor. We have absolutely no power. Even the Community Empowerment Act came into force. The Glasgow City Council took it on board as their own, which goes against the Community Empowerment Act itself, and it's nobody has any, because they've got to bring it back down to local levels, local boroughs, like they have everywhere in Spain. Every pueblo, every small town has their own ayuntamiento. That ayuntamiento, you can go and knock on their door and say, look, that rubbish has not been picked up for 2 weeks. Can you get it sorted? And they get it sorted. Just that's an example. Bring it back down to local level. And the 1973 Local Authorities Act needs to be looked at again.
Yeah.
You know, it's got to be brought back down to boroughs where people do actually
have. That was when they get rid of the
have
boroughs and replace them with regional councils.
Yeah, but bring back the boroughs so people actually know exactly what they're dealing with, because it's just all a mess, and it's been a mess since that massive big, as they call themselves now, the local government.
Thank you, Labour.
Well, actually, it was the SNP and Susan Aitken, that did the local government thing. It was actually the SNP have got worse in Glasgow than Labour.
I was looking back in the 1970 thing when they rearranged the local government and replaced the boroughs with the regional councils.
Yeah, the local authority.
The SNP didn't have any power; they only had 2 MPs.
Yeah.
Again, this is harping back to what we talked about earlier But by going back to the system we used to have and basically modernizing it, we don't need to replace it. We don't need to rewrite it. We need to modernize it. We don't need a brand new constitution. We'll modernize what we have, and other countries have copied what we have. Switzerland does something very similar. The key thing is that your democracy is there and your sovereignty stays with you. It doesn't go off to the politicians in Switzerland either. It stays with the people. The people are sovereign, and they refer to it in all the documents the same way actually that we did for centuries. So again, it's a relevant thing for young people watching this, is that when you take the control back, it is down to the local level, and it escalates up right into the form of government that will run Scotland again as it used to. But it'll be more modern and certainly transparent and accountable. And right now, and anybody's younger watching it, look at how unaccountable your politicians are. And it doesn't matter what party they're in. You have to wait for them to die or resign or something to have a by-election. It's absolutely ridiculous. You maintain sovereignty, you maintain control. If you don't like what they're doing, you have the right to call them out and get them removed. I think in Switzerland, I think there's still a 2-year limit in there, but you can still call it without them resigning or their party agreeing to it. Why would you trust a party that's a collection of strangers to represent you? If it's somebody local and you don't like what they've done or they've broken law, you can get rid of them in Switzerland. We're going to do the same thing back in Scotland again. We used to do this. So
Iceland do it as well.
It's you call it living history. It sounds like a bad lecture from Mr. Rogers, living history, but it's real. You can use this. We will go back to this system. Very accountable, very quick, democratic, transparent and accountable, none of which applies to the politicians we have today. It's all smoky, dark rooms, and it's an abysmal way to run a modern country.
If you look at Iceland and what Iceland did as well, they just completely changed it overnight and got rid of the bad politicians and the pots and pans revolution. Just stood in front of the parliament and said, get out, and the banks, you're getting jailed, you guys. The whole thing, that was Gordon Brown and the iSafe scandal, and they just changed everything all around within 24 hours.
In Switzerland, Ivan. In Switzerland, the parliament actually calls the people the sovereigns, because that's what they are in Switzerland.
Mr. Word people, but they are sovereign. And the key thing here to think about why this matters again so much to the younger generation is you maintain control, you keep the politicians accountable and keep their actions transparent, and things that you don't like, you can escalate quickly from a very local to a very global, i.e. federal level, or in this case, like wherever the governing body in Scotland will be called after this is complete. And it's accountability. You do not want to have to wait months or years for this stuff to happen. It just doesn't work. Why are you trusting strangers to run your life, and uncountable ones at that? It has to be changed and relevant to you. You do not let the world go by. And if you keep voting this way for Hollywood eventually, and what will happen, this is speculative, I know, but what will happen, guys, is they will take away every single devolved local power Hollywood has until it's basically a bunch of very expensive benches. There'll be nothing in there at all. And they're trying.
They've already started. They've already started doing that with the internal market bill. They can shoot down any law that they want now that Holyrood passes. We all knew it was coming. The Brexit was not for that, but it was obvious when obviously Holyrood was saying, well, we want the powers that the EU used to have when it came to Scotland. Can we have them? And they just straight up went, no, we're having them.
You see, Scotland wanted to build another Queensferry crossing. If Scotland wanted to build one of those, they couldn't do it now, because basically that power has been taken back. The Scottish Parliament basically had it before, when it was basically everything was devolved to the European Union as far as big contracts were concerned. But when they brought out the power grab, they basically said anything over half, I think it's anything over $500 million, has to be put out to tender through Westminster, would be reserved. But of course, you know what happens when Westminster put things out to tender? Like 34 billion in your track and trace system that disappeared. Somebody should be tracking and tracing the 34 billion.
Yeah, it just goes to their pals in the House of Lords, doesn't it?
Well, I think we should speak about some of the campaigns that we've got going on so people know.
Yes.
So I wanted to give it to you now, Marie Claire, to discuss the Union on Trial. Obviously, Dave and Ivan, if you have anything to add after Marie Claire's gave her wee thing, feel free.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we have already done the prologue, which was shown at the Salvo conference on Sunday, and there was not really a dry eye in the house, I don't think, with
No.
a very, very condensed 300-year history, in fact, more than 300-year history of Scotland condensed into 25 minutes, which was fair going. So that's the prologue to the Union on Trial, which will be a dramatised piece based on fact. So it's a courtroom drama, really, and I'm sure it'll be quite dramatic, with the advocates being all the Scots lawyers talking to the devil's advocate, which is the English lawyer. That's the kind of the format. It's still a work in progress in the sense it's going to be rewritten slightly in bits and pieces, as David and I talked about later on. So he's always good at rewriting things just to get it up to scratch. This will be filmed, and this will be shown. I'd love to get this on Netflix. It's got to be 50 minutes long, similarly, to get it on Netflix, just to get it a bigger audience. But this will be shown around all the theatres, the independent film theatres we can think of in Scotland, to get it out there once it's done, once it's rendered, it's compressed and it's cleaned up and it's cinema ready and up and running. So we're in the process of doing that just now. So this will be quite exciting. As I said, the prologue was just an introduction to, it wasn't dramatised, it was very dramatic, but it was literally just facts of history in Scotland, what happened with the treaty, the treaty, and we'll not talk about that. And then, so this is going to be completely different. It's a dramatisation, so it's going to be an interspersed with facts. So it's a docudrama, basically, but it'll be dramatic in the side that this will be a courtroom drama with dialogue between the devil's advocate and the three Scottish advocates, and then they interspersed with Professor Alf Baird and other people talking over it, giving us facts of what we've just discussed in the courtroom. So it's in the process of going.
It's very exciting.
Yes, I think it will be. I think it's quite nerve-wracking as well. But we just we had wanted Angus McFadden, the guy that played the Bruce, but he's now filming just now, and he wrote us a really nice, or Susanna, a really nice email saying sorry he couldn't participate. It sounds really exciting, but he's filming the Darien project because he now lives in Panama. So, but for any other things that's going on, be interested.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to see what they have to say about that. I mean, the Union trial again. The key thing here is that we don't want to just have the idea is not just to have another, it's at end of the year your teacher sticks on a video like the old days, you sit and watch it because then the year's coming up and you go home. The whole point of the Union trial is to show how England broke the terms of the treaty, and in so doing, annexed Scotland, colonized it, and then destroyed your language, your culture. And the key thing is it's an ongoing process. It's keeping Scots, young people, and young people who want to have families or jobs or innovate or do anything in a hole. It's going to keep on. People leave Scotland because they cannot build a future there, and that's purely as a result because the infrastructure, the training, the education, the opportunity to control things like, say, building a bridge. We can't do anything. Our hands are tied by the British state and by their complete abuse and rewrite of terms of the treaty, which are illegal. So the whole point of Union trial is to show how it was subverted, how we were annexed, and then to show again this is what it means to you. I'm hoping, Marie Claire, we do get a number for some people who want to. Well, okay, the history's interesting. God, England's treating us badly. British state's terrible. What does it mean to me, my family, financially? Well, you say, look at your window around the infrastructure that you have, your buildings, or how your council behaves, or the trash in the streets, whatever you see. I think people in the southeast of England think something is not right. And I'm hoping we also come up with a hard number per year of how many pounds or dollars, whatever, this has cost you and all of your family, and it will continue to cost you as things move forward. We are going to keep losing until you take control, as is your right, under treaty, back into Scotland, so the resources stay here for your good and your family and all your friends to get on with building and living in a normal, independent country, because we are not. Have you seen Train Spotting? And the scene they got in the train is like, what a place to be. Everyone's seen the clip, and that's where we are, and we're going to change that. Because if you don't change it, everybody who's watching this video who's younger is going to be thinking about moving to England for a job or leaving the country and maybe coming back, maybe not. You can't build a future when someone else is controlling your purse strings, is imposing laws and basically treating you like third-class citizens in your own country. That's where we are, and that needs to stop.
That's actually quite an interesting, if you're saying leaving the country, because actually most kids that want to leave the country can't. Because of Brexit, they can't leave the country because they can't get either Irish passports to leave the country, so they're European, or they have to pay a fortune to go to another country to work because they've got to get visas, which cost, which cost a lot of money. So actually, that's a really, really good point, is that even if the youth wanted to leave the country, which basically the state of Westminster and the British state has decimated and kept in poverty and kept, horrendous conditions I see here, coming back from living abroad, coming back here and you're going, do you people put up with this? Do I put up with this? Yeah. This is the psychological damage, let alone anything else that's been going down through, dripping roast through the centuries. And then to have it all cut off, that even if people did want to get their education and move abroad and do anything else, they can't. Because you can't travel.
Yeah, and again, the union, the British state, and its illegal implementation of the treaty as it was signed is causing endless emotional, physical, and financial damage to everybody in Scotland, whether they're a year old or 70 years old. So union trial is going to expose what that is. How we take control again is we educate through Salvo, and we take control back via liberation through ICJ and UN. And England's got to make a very hard decision. You either toe the line and dump Perfidious Albion. That means England, you keep your word, or you end up looking like some tin pot fourth world state. Some ways you already do. You already broke your word in so many treaties. This we want you to stand by and say, okay, and walk up as an adult and behave and play nicely. You've treated us badly for 3 centuries, and it's just enough. Union trial is going to expose really.
And as you said, actually, these things can be put into place quite quickly.
Yeah. It's no big deal. Like my favorite ones. Oh my God, you're going to leave. What currency you pick? Well, I picked the spotted yellow self-IDing lemur banana as my currency. Who cares? Yeah. So many countries after the breakup of the Soviet Union or whatever just picked a currency and moved on. It doesn't matter. It's tied to how you trade with the world and what your exports are and what you produce. Whatever currency you pick doesn't matter.
No, because Estonia pegged themselves to the yen, didn't they?
Yeah, it's such a tediously boring, naive thing. And everyone young is watching this. If you hear the currency question, laugh in their face, turn around and walk away. It's a joke. Pick anything you like. I worked in finance in London for 5 years. It's a joke. Pick any currency you like. It's not a vaguely relevant question. It's not important. It isn't. Your ability to travel and work is. Your ability to have good healthcare is. Your ability to save is. Your ability to keep politicians transparent and accountable is. Your currency, who cares? Not important.
And it'll be a strong currency because basically we're an energy exporting nation, and we're going to have a really big customer down south.
England's going to need their power, but you're going to be paying for it. You'll be taking oil and gas where it's going to cost you. Maybe we'll barter with them and they'll know what England would give us back. Wetherspoon's beer, yeah, no, thank you. To save your water, I'm not drinking anything you send back north anymore. I don't want your beer.
No.
Wetherspoon's was bad when water was cleaning the Thames.
Yep. And we have to keep it. Have to keep it positive. No, I'm just going to say we have to keep it positive. So at the end of the union trial, it has to be a real. Yeah, but at the end of the union trial, when we finish with the union trial docudrama, it has to be a real positive message to everyone. This is what we can do. Just let's get it done.
That's right. Yeah. No more talking. I mean, this talk of let's all sit down around the campfire, sing Kumbaya, make s'mores, and write a Scottish Constitution. Guys, we have one. What we're going to do is we're going to take it out. We're going to shake off some of the dust, get rid of some of the cruft. Like say, as Dave pointed out, some of the sections around like obviously sectarian political language. No one's going to take out the right to assemble, the right to protest, but things like that, they can go away. They've become obsolete. They're going to be dumped. But yeah, union trial will show how we get on with things. No more talking. We don't need Toombs or Yusuf's talk about let's write a constitution. Man, you're so uneducated. We have one. We're going to modernize it, whether you like it or not. We're going to clean it up and we're going to use it.
Yeah, we
then
already
again,
have a constitution. And I've heard a few people say, what, we're going to go back to a medieval backwards constitution. And
No.
my response to them is always, you clearly have not read it if you think it's backwards, because you had more rights in the 17 and 1600s than you do now.
Yeah.
That's right.
If you look at the European
Absolutely.
Convention on Human Rights and compare it to the rights that you get in the claim of right, the nobody ever mentions while they're busy talking about sectarianism. It's like, it's unbelievable, and this is like 300 years ago. They'd bite your arm off for these rights now, unless they were a Tory, in which case they probably won't get rid of them so they could sell them to someone.
Yeah. Well, Dave, I've heard there's something really big going on tomorrow. Do you have much to tell us about it?
Well, it's a wee story that goes back 4 weeks, because basically we heard that Charles was going to come up. If they go back to 1953 first for a minute, Queen Elizabeth after her coronation in England at Westminster came up to Scotland, and she was warned by Winston Churchill, when you get presented with the honours of Scotland, don't get dressed up as a queen, go up with your normal clothes, and when you get there, don't touch anything, because at the end of the day, if you touch anything, it might be symbolic to the Scots that they're more important than they are, and so they continued with that, and so she did, and it was very, very demure. But what's happened here this time is that Charles's advisors, and he actually said before he made his alleged accession speech, which we'll cut in here just now if you like, and I'll continue afterwards. But cut, okay. So basically, Charles has said that he's paying lip service to the claim of right, but he's paying lip service to the statutory law that's on it, and not the constitutional part, whereas it's the constitutional part that's actually survived. So what's happening now is Charles is coming tomorrow to do the same things his mother did in 1953 without Winston Churchill telling him what to do. And this time, 4 weeks ago, Salvo decided that we were going to take out an interim interdict to serve on the Church of Scotland and the moderator to stop them taking part in what is an unlawful ceremony under the claim of right. The claim of right basically says, and I apologise for using sectarian language in this, because at the end of the day, this is the law as it stands. It's not the fact that we agree with it. This is the law as it stands, taken from the UK Parliament site. It's like the no papist may be the monarch. And any Protestant can only take the regal power if and when is signed the coronation oath. It's sworn the coronation oath. Now, the coronation oath in Scotland was the one that was sworn by William and Mary and Queen Anne, that was dumped and replaced by the English one after the Union. So much for a union of equals. It was basically, we got the English one already in 1707. Or the first coronation after it, and they've continued that way. So the thing is, basically, as far as the claim of rights is concerned, and it's a cornerstone of the British Constitution, it's the only law that's actually been accepted and passed by two parliaments, the original Scottish Parliament and the UK Parliament. With that, Charles, if Charles does not take the Scottish coronation oath, which we've actually got in a leaflet that's going to be coming out, I'll put it up on the screen here, so you can have a look at it. If he does not take that oath, then he's not king. And I'm not saying that. Salvo are not saying that. Scotland are not saying that. The claim of right says that. That is the law. That is the law in Scotland. That is the law in the UK. Now, there's not much UK law, but constitutional. There is UK constitutional law. And as far as that's concerned, that's what it says. So tomorrow, we've got these leaflets made. We've got 1,000 leaflets made up to say that Charles, unless he actually takes the Scottish coronation oath, as it mentions in the claim of right, He is not lawful King of Scotland. He might be legally King of Scotland as far as they want to say, but legally and lawful have got different meanings.
Yeah.
So basically, as I say, I contacted the police earlier on today. We're going to be turning up with at least 30 people, probably more,
Yes.
because as I say, this is a call out to anybody from Salvo who wants to be there tomorrow to add your voices. We're meeting outside the High Court at 10:30. We're not going to protest against the King, right? Because at the end of the day, there's another group going to be doing that. And as I say, we don't want to get pulled into something else that where we don't control. We're there to basically say, look, if you want to be king, it's your choice. We're not here to say that you shouldn't be king. We're here to say that unless you swear the Scottish coronation oath, then legally you are not. And as I say, I've said all this to the police. They're going to keep an eye open. And we're going to be handing out these leaflets to explain what it is we're doing. We're all going to be dressed with our Salvo tops on. I've got them. We're going to have Salvo flags. We're all going to be together as a group. And we're going to basically educate people to the actual facts. And so that's the plan for tomorrow. We're meeting outside the High Court between 10:30 and 11.
Okay.
We'll then be making our way down the Royal Mile to find a place where we can get good visibility and where we can be seen and where we can make contact with other people who are there for the day. So some might be just out to say, oh, it's like, after all, you know, the Royal Mile, it's like it's McDisney, and you're probably the two that's exactly. So in the meantime, while basically the Church of Scotland take part in a grand sham to convince the Scottish people that Charles is actually legal, and yet they are the people who are the only people who has actually had an oath sworn to protect them. While I've missed out the actual root of what the claim of right is about the sovereignty of the Scots people, and not only that, but the actual coronation oath itself, which actually says that it shall inviolably protect the rights and rents of the office, and that he will not divide it or give it away anywhere else. Well, if that had happened before, whatever the monarch between Anne and now, Scotland would not be having their renewables ripped off them. They would have had their oil ripped off them, because at the end of the day, the Scots crown and the English crown are separate. And everybody says, "Oh no, you've got a king of Great Britain." No, we don't. And if you watch Elizabeth's funeral, you will have seen the hearse go down the Royal Mile, and on top of the coffin was the Scots crown. And it's an older crown than any of the ones in Britain, because basically it predates. It predates the Union. It predates the one that England have. And as I say, if there was such a thing as a UK crown, believe me, after all the jewels that they took out of India, they'd have bloody well made one.
Yeah, great
Okay,
comments.
thanks for coming on, Ivan.
Yeah. Ivan, thank you very much. It was very informative what you were talking about as well.
Yeah, it was really interesting. We do edits with this, but we should do this again at some point and have different agendas to go through, because things are moving very quickly with Salvo and with Liberation. This is not a static process. It's moving very quickly, which is great.
Yeah.
So should we make some closing statements?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, closing statements. Okay. I suppose I would just say to anybody watching this, and especially young people watching this, get on and do your homework, get on and read all about Salvo and sign liberation.scot. Absolutely. And get on board, please, because this is your future. That's all I want to say.
For me, all I would say is if there are any Salvo members or sympathisers, please, if you can get yourself to Edinburgh tomorrow, it's we'll be outside the front of the High Court. It's about 400 yards down the road from Edinburgh Castle in the Royal Mile. We'll be there for 10:30, 11 o'clock, and then we'll be moving further down. And we look forward to seeing you. It's not going to be an anti-king protest, because at the end of the day, they've already seen what's going to happen to any of those. We are going to be there basically to say, how come that we cannot find a single lawyer in the whole of Scotland that will actually go up in front of a court to take out an interdict against something that is patently unlawful that the Church of Scotland are doing tomorrow.
Well, the last thing I would say is no matter what age you are, but especially young people, we need young people on board. It's our future. As you can tell, I'm still in my first flush of youth. Head over to salvo.scot, become a member, sign the Edinburgh Proclamation at liberation.scot. This is our home, this is our country, and we're being treated like Mary Claire said, third-class citizens in our own land. And who wants to put up with that? Absolutely nobody. So put your TikTok down, put your vodkas down for 2 seconds, and head over to the website.
And although James is in his first flush of youth, I've still got more hair than him.
But not as much as me.
Only because I cut mine.
So do I. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thank you.
So,
Have a great night, guys.
Okay, honey.
cheers.
Okay.
Bye-bye.